Toward the end of his life, St. Thomas Aquinas purportedly received supernatural visions, and what he saw was so magnificent that he stopped writing his magnum opus, the Summa Theologica. He said, "Everything I've written is a pile of straw compared to the things that I've seen." A friend of mine once remarked that it was an admirable pile of straw, and I would agree, as would much of the Christian tradition. One of the ways in which it is admirable is that Thomas shows us how to love our enemies. And what do I mean by this? When we read this work, how is it organized? This is what he does. He considers a question, and then he lists multiple objections to that question. Objection 1, objection 2, objection 3. He then answers the question, and he answers these objections by saying, "On the contrary," and or "I answer that." Sometimes it's varied. He then proceeds to give replies to each of the objections. And when he is doing this, he is giving the strongest objections possible. So what he lists first are the strongest objections possible, and he proceeds to interact with and refute those objections. He's thinking critically, but I would also say he's thinking charitably. He is articulating his opponent's position in the strongest possible terms. He isn't straw-manning their arguments. He is steel-manning their arguments. He is putting forward the strongest arguments that his opponents have to offer. By doing this, Thomas is showing us a very simple way of loving our enemies, our adversaries, even if they're merely intellectual opponents. It still demonstrates charity to represent their positions not only accurately, but strongly. If we don't, we not only are not loving our enemies, we are committing a species of falsehood, of lying or of bearing false witness by saying this is what they believe. We are also setting ourselves up as being untrustworthy. If we don't accurately represent our opponent, you will turn your hearers and your audience against you once they find out that you don't describe the opposing position very well. So, love your enemies with steel. Steel man their arguments. By doing so, you will demonstrate charity, integrity, truth, and you may actually engage in a meaningful debate or conversation with your neighbor, especially within the household of faith. When we do this, we are laboring towards a unity that the church strives for, and the kind of unity that Christ prayed for, because while truth divides, it also unites. This reminds us of our need to confess